What's up everyone? Welcome to Friday Q&A. Thanks for tuning in as always. If you've got questions for next week, get them in the comments. Ask me absolutely anything you like. Let's get straight into these. So Stephen Miyagori asks me, "Hi Leon, I absolutely love tribute and charity concerts. Many artists, tons of gear, a lot of colors and different genres. Likely to hear artists perform in a manner outside of the norm." He also goes on to say that his only live performances these days are at such local events. Have you or Ragdoll had any experience with such events, and might you be able to going forward? Love you, brother. Well, first, Stephen, I love you too, man. Thanks so much for the great question. We've done quite a few sort of local charity gigs. And I've done some as like a side person outside of it. So we'll start with the Ragdoll stuff, I guess. Probably the one that sticks out the most is we did a concert called Rock the Dock. So if you're not an Australian, you might not be too familiar with a band called The Angels. If you've never heard them, go check them out because they're a fantastic rock band. And their singer Doc Neeson, I believe, this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I think he had either a brain tumor or brain cancer or something like that, and really, really terrible illness, and they put together a benefit. Sort of across the country, there were a bunch of different people organizing things, and we played one of those, and it was interesting because they had sort of like a tribute band to the Angels and a lot of other Aussie rock that included some ex-Angels members and some sort of Aussie rock royalty, which was really cool. So just hanging out backstage there was a really lovely vibe, and I got to meet some people who I never thought I would meet in a million years from the Australian music industry, which is really cool. And we were the only original band on the bill. There were a couple of cover bands and a couple of tribute acts, and it was really interesting playing this venue and going out and totally doing our own thing. And we really got a great reception from that gig. I really remember that night. It was, you know, it's one of those things. I think tribute and charity concerts, a lot of people are able to sort of put their egos aside and get together for the greater good. And we've done a few shows like that and some, you know, some benefits. And yeah, it's it really, you know, it's really easy to get caught up in the whole music thing where it's, I'm speaking for myself anyway, you know, I play music and I write music that I like to hear, and it's, in many ways, it's kind of all about me. It's very self-centered kind of thing where I'm trying to, you know, express my creativity in my way without anyone else telling me what to do, and then collaborating with the guys in the band, and the three of us, you know, we all kind of pull in the same direction. So there is that, not in a sort of bad selfish way, you know, in the sort of self-centered, self-aggrandizing kind of way, but sort of in the way where it's like, well, I'm only doing this because I want to do it. You know, I'm really, really fortunate to be in that position, but doing those kind of tribute and charity gigs really reminds you that music is a far bigger thing than any one individual, and it's a universal language. And, you know, before I get too heavy with the platitudes, it's an amazing thing, and they're really great to be a part of. I've done some stuff with some Sony artists here in Australia as well, through one of the bigger charities, Ronald McDonald House, which is for, which is a great charity, you know, centered around childhood illness, and doing some stuff with, well, I have done some stuff with Justice Crew and Samantha Jade and some of these more high-profile Aussie artists, and they're all really great people, and the charities are great people, and it really goes to show that, you know, not everyone in the world is an arsehole, so that's why I like doing the tribute stuff and the charity stuff. This one comes from John Roberts. Great video. Did you see many made in Japan guitars that you would have liked while I was in Japan? So many. I believe it was Ishibashi Music we went to. We went to 2 locations. There's one in Shibuya and there's one in Ochanamitsu, and oh my god, so many guitars there that hadn't been on my radar before. They're made in Japan stuff. Whether it was the used stuff, you know, there was some really great Grecos and Bernies and Tokais, a couple of other brands I couldn't even pronounce that I played. It was like, oh my god, I could really see myself taking this home and, you know, maybe changing the pickups or changing the hardware and getting something going. But we also, not in that video, but we toured the Deviser factory. I did a separate video about that a while ago. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of this guitar. This is, oh, let me make sure I pull it off correctly. This is my STR guitar. This is handmade in Japan. Their take on, you know, the classic Les Paul kind of thing. And it's just flawless. Like, if you have a look at, if that focuses, some of the detail in there, and the flame and all the sort of fine finishing, and you know, the fret ends, and they're really, really great. So all the Deviser stuff and the Momose stuff, obviously I've got a relationship with that company, so it was really great to go through and actually check out some of their stuff. And so much of it was in the stores there, which was super cool. And then, what was I'm trying to think of the brand. I'm really struggling to remember. But yeah, there was even just some of the made in Japan Fender and Gibson stuff, which I don't know how they go about that relationship, whether they have a factory there or something like that. And I also played an Orville, which was awesome, and I really wanted to take home with me. But unfortunately, the budget did not permit. But yeah, there's some really, I mean, there's some amazing Japanese guitars out there. And it's a real shame that a lot of them don't make it overseas. A lot of them are just for domestic consumption. But they stack up against anything I've played in the world. So this is a follow-on from a question that I answered partially last week. To cut it short, it's also, is the ambition to create something out of the ordinary, something that stands out from the rest, i.e. the ambition to compose something timeless, a bad thing? I've been arguing with my bandmates over how we should approach songwriting, because I'm just bored with the generic feeling of our songs. They've been telling me to stay humble and not aim for the moon, but I feel like it's just not trying hard enough. And I reckon that is the big dilemma with any band, no matter what level you're at. There's always this kind of tension between, you know, doing what you think you should do, you know, which a lot of the time is, hey, let's do stuff that's going to please the audience. It's going to mean we can go out and play live shows and have fun and build a fan base and all that kind of stuff. And then there's what you should do rather than what you think you should do. This applies all across different aspects of life, you know, the idea of doing something as opposed to actually doing something. And I think it's that inherent tension between trying to stay with something that's marketable and familiar, especially if you're writing rock music, because let's face it, it's way more fun when there's more people involved playing rock music. And trying to do something really ambitious. I think what it boils down to, though, is ambitious in what way? Like, are you trying to make something that people have never heard before? Because that's certainly ambitious and it's very difficult. Or are you trying to be ambitious in the way that you just sound really good? And they're two obviously separate things. And I mean, this is something that I struggled with a lot when I was growing up and wanting to learn to write music. And a lot of the time I would find that trying to do something just because it's new kind of thing can lead to some really cool, you know, new sounds. But sometimes you can get too hung up on that, and you might have a really wonderful melody idea or a chord progression that sounds beautiful and really resonates with people and resonates with you, that you feel it and you go like, oh, I really like that idea, but it's 4 chords and a melody in C major, and that's not ambitious enough. So I think what I would recommend is, rather than worry about, you know, trying to do something new, really try to, how do I say this without it being so sort of nebulous, just write as much as you can, whether it's super generic stuff or it's super out of the box stuff, and do all of it and throw it against the wall and see what sticks. I think that's the best way to go. So that ambition to be creative, I think, is probably what you're trying to hone in on, rather than like, yeah, let's just crank out songs and, you know, they're cookie cutter. I think the ambition should be to be like satisfied that you're expressing your creativity, and people do that in different ways. Some people do that by writing prog metal in 11/8 with, you know, dulcimers, and other people do that just by writing really cathartic love songs. So maybe that kind of helps you solve that kind of Gordian knot where it's like you're pulling in different directions, when really the whole idea of like stay humble and try not to aim for the moon, I guess maybe what they're trying to say is, you know, just worry about getting the basics right. And I would definitely say that. Worry about just trying to play your songs as well as you can. Try to write within your abilities and write parts which are appropriate for the band members' abilities, and just really embrace the prospect that you're playing with people, so it's a collaboration, and everybody, you know, you have to give a little bit, they have to give a little bit, everyone gives and takes. So yeah, find out what your actual ambition is, define it, and then run as fast as you can towards it, and don't give up even if you fail, because you will fail a lot. That's part of the fun. Solar Guitar Studio asks, what is your MIDI switching setup? At the moment, I'm just using a Rocktron Patchmate, which is, that's a good question, where is it? Patchmate, MIDI Mate. The Patchmate is the thing that sits in the rack. So the MIDI Mate, it can send command changes and program changes, which is pretty handy. I've also got my Axe-FX Ultra, which my dad now has. He's got, what is it, the BJ Devices TB12. So I've been meaning to borrow that from him and set up some patches with that and see if I can integrate that. But at the moment, the Axe 3 is sitting in my studio, and I'm not making the most of the MIDI switching stuff yet. I'm really waiting for the FC12 to come out, which should be pretty exciting, because the idea of running one XLR to the front of stage and having 12-foot switches is, hey, let's face it, that sounds pretty awesome. So I know that's not a MIDI controller though, technically, so that's their FAS link. So yeah, the Rocktron MIDI Mate, it's good, it's cheap, it works. Okay, Fizz and Sprinkles, my man, question. I'm a studio-only player. I don't gig. I jam practice in my studio through my AX8 RME interface and focal monitors, and I track with the same rig. The focals are, I'm a little bit jealous. They're amazing monitors, man. Am I missing something without utilizing real amps? I've never been an amp guy, but I started to ponder the idea of what an amp aux monitors rig would be like. But then the idea of having to put an individual pedal board together seems like a bit much for me. I'm a tone chaser, but not a heavy tweaker. What do I do? Again, this boils down to option paralysis. If the AX8 is working for you and it fits into your workflow, just use it. Because ultimately, if you're using an amp head and an aux, essentially what you're getting is the sound of an amp running into a speaker cab mic'd up. So it's not going to sound that much different. And I know a lot of people out there are going to be like, oh, no, it does. It sounds different. It feels different. But I haven't experienced that. You know, I just tracked an album for a friend of mine, and it was all AX8. And you know, we had stuff like, you know, vintage 70s Marshalls to choose from for this thing, and the AX8 just kind of kicked it out of the park, and it made things fast. So honestly, if that setup is working for you, and if you've got the focals, man, they're amazing monitors. You're better off having your money invested in the focals than you are an amp and a load box, in my opinion. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Have I tried any of the other Meyers preamps? I realized that I answered this, and I thought he said, have I tried any of them? I've obviously got the SLO clone, which I think sounds amazing, sounds really good into the Mesa 250 power amp that I've got. But I haven't tried any of the other preamps. I reckon the CCV would be killer. I've heard some clips of that one. Same with the CAE clone that he does, even though, you know, it's pretty much bordering on copyright infringement, but you know, they're in Russia. I'm sure they don't care. The only thing that stopped me getting another one, basically, is I bought another preamp. I'm going to pick it up tonight, actually, and I'll do some videos with it. Otherwise, I'd really like to try the CCV or the Mark IV. And, you know, the stuff, it's really, really solid. I've opened mine up. It's really well put together, really, really well built. So he does good stuff. It's just a long wait if you want to get one. You know, from Russia to Australia took 3 months, so that was the hardest part, waiting. Any chance you could release the IRs as WAV files? The only problem with that is the Axe 3, the way I shot the IRs, I should say, I used my Axe-FX 3, and that at the moment is only capturing them as .syx files, sizex files, I think that's how you say it, and I generally shoot my WAV IRs in a different way. Shooting it with the Axe 3 is so much easier, which is why I did that video, because it was quick and easy and really easy to share the IRs. But I will have to do another IR shoot day and maybe do it down at the studio with my buddy Troy, because we shot some IRs of my Mesa 212 with some WGS speakers, and then his Marshall with V30s. We use his Marshall for everything in the studio. It sounds great. So I will link those, because you can get those as waves. I've got a bunch of other wave IRs, and now that I've got the 609, 906, I think I've got a 609, I've got the cheap one. I really like the way that mic sounds, so I've got to go through and shoot some waves. So I won't say when, but hopefully in the not too distant future, I'll do some more IR shoots and do a little cab pack as waves. Can you use the Axe-FX 3 IRs with the AX8? You can. You will just need to use Fractal to convert them. get Fractal. It's amazing. It's such a great sort of utility for any of your Fractal devices. And if you are using it, you know, chuck Alex, the guy who makes it, some money, because he offers it up, you know, for free, and he does all the coding. He's a one-man operation, and he's so on the ball with all the updates, so it's worth it. I knew this would get some people, get some chins wagging. All the amazing food in Tokyo, and you guys went to McDonald's. No. Well, that video that I put up, I was actually in Japan a few months ago, and it's taken me a while just to get around to edit that kind of stuff together. Well, I actually didn't go to McDonald's in Tokyo, so that footage is from somewhere else. When we went to Kyoto, I think maybe like, what was it? We went to McDonald's maybe for lunch or something like that, but it was near the end of the trip. And I will have to say, Japan, for food, I'm a massive lover of food, as I'm sure a lot of you guys are. If you love food, just go to Japan and eat your way around that place, because obviously their traditional food and their modern Japanese cuisine is insane. It's unlike anything else I've eaten. It's so good. It's haunting me thinking about it. But also, just all the food, all the different cuisines, they do so well. I had a pizza there at an Italian place that might be the best pizza I've ever eaten, and that's for someone coming from Perth, where we have a lot of, you know, first, second, third generation Italians. Food in Perth's great as well if you're visiting, but man, this pizza was outrageous, just so good. But yeah, after like 2 weeks of living at large, we were in Kyoto, and it's like, you know what, everyone says you got to try McDonald's, let's go to McDonald's. So we did, and it's easily the best McDonald's I've ever tried. It's still McDonald's, but you know, the Japanese know how to do stuff. You know, they really do it well. So it was not a bad McDonald's experience, put it that way. And I'm sorry you guys had to watch me eat. Again, on the Japan stuff, awesome that they had the Fractal stuff there. That was really surprising. I love that they had like Kemper, Line 6, Fractal, Atomic, Headrush, all the stuff set up in a section of the shop with full range monitors so that you could try this stuff. I think if more guitar stores here in Australia and in America had that kind of setup, it would save a lot of heartache for a lot of people. You could actually, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, compare everything and pick what's right for you. The guitars, I guess the prices for new stuff are pretty much par once you sort of convert everything. I still couldn't get over the fact that the conversion to yen from Australian dollars is like 10 to 1 or something. So I'd be looking at something and it would be like 200,000, and it's like, whoa, that's, oh my God, that's super expensive. And by the time you convert it, it's like, you know, 1,800, 1,900 Australian dollars. But yeah, you know, the good stuff still costs a lot of money, as it should, because it's good stuff, right? That's how money works. But I will say that if you hunt around some of the used guitars that you can find, there are some amazing deals there, especially on like 70s stuff. Again, Greco, Bernie, Tokai, Navigator, all this kind of stuff. Some of the lesser known brands you can pick up secondhand for an absolute steal, and it took a lot of discipline not to pack a bunch of cases full and ship them back. So yeah, overall the new stuff's pretty much par, but there are some great deals you can get on used stuff. And I bought a couple of pedals there, and hopefully in the next week I can show you one of them, which my buddy Johnny from Anarchy Audio has got his mitts into. It's pretty cool. So talking about my Marshall video, someone asked me, was that the Anderton's video riff snuck in there? And I'll be honest, I don't even know what that sounds like, so I'm gonna look it up. And I think I know the riff you're talking about, but let's have a listen. Let's see, Anderton's. These guys like are the internet, so this should be pretty easy to find. Let's have a listen. Let's see, first video, Black Star Artist 30. This isn't it. This is Chris Buck, who's amazing. You should watch his YouTube channel if you don't already. That guy is the taste master. Let's see, just come on, Andertons, give me this one, the Kemper one. Yeah, I guess that kind of does. I do that a lot, which is just sitting on like, you know, if you're in the key of E, the Hendrix chord, or E7 sharp 9, so play on the A string, the 7th fret, on the D string, the 6th fret, on the G string, the 7th fret, and on the B string, the 8th fret. That's like 90% of my day just sitting there kind of chunking those chords. Probably in drop C though, for more of a King's X kind of thing. And yeah, so no, it wasn't the Anderton's riff, and I don't know why that question took so long for me to answer. Have you ever played the Blue Marshall? I think it may have been the 30th anniversary special edition. I believe you're correct. I had a couple of Marshall catalogs when I was growing up, and I always remember seeing this blue Marshall amp and just wanting one so bad. And still to this day, I have never even seen one in the flesh. So if you're in Perth and you own a 30th anniversary Marshall and you want to come and hang out, and I'll make you a cup of tea. Hey, it's the greatest deal of all time, right? Bring your Marshall around and we'll do a demo, because I've always wanted to try one of those heads. A lot of people I've seen talk about like the TSL series and say they prefer the 30th anniversary over the TSL, which immediately pikes my interest because the TSL is not a bad amp. I like the Dual Super Lead a little bit more, but it'd be pretty cool to hear the 30th anniversary, see how it stacks up. But then again, maybe it's bad, because if it's good, I'd want to buy one and it's going to cost me more money. But yeah, 30th anniversary Marshall. Gonna have to try and get my hands on one of them and do a demo. It's like the missing link, I think, from the JCM 900 to the DSL series. Okay, comparing Mercurial's Spark 800, which I think is an amazing sounding plugin, and the Axe-Fx 3 800, we should probably just listen to a clip. Here is the Brit 800 and the Mercurial stuff. Knobs all at the same settings. I have disabled the inbuilt cab sim in the Spark plugin, and I've used the same own hammer cab as I have in the Axe-Fx 3 and in Spark. So essentially we should just be comparing the modeling. I have recorded the clip by playing into the Axe-Fx 3, tracking one set of the performance, I guess, with the Brit 800. I've also taken a DI out from that performance and then reamped it with Spark. So it's exactly the same playing. I'll just sort of chop and change between the two of them. To me, there are some very subtle differences. They feel really different when I'm just playing through the plugin. Feels nothing like the 3, which, you know, is to sort of be expected because it depends on the sort of interface you're using and stuff like that. But overall, for the money, I think Spark stacks up really, really well. Yeah, if you want a Marshall plugin, I think it kicks the crap out of stuff like Bias and Amplitude, and they're a smaller company, and I think they probably deserve your money more than a lot of those other places, because have a listen to how close this is. Okay, this answers Jerry's question, hopefully, and it's also going to be our lick of the week, getting the pinky involved for lead playing. What we'll do is we'll stick to a pentatonic sequence. We'll play in E, but we will extend the top note on there and grab an extra note. So we'll get the 17th fret. And the sequence is going to go like this. We'll pull off 17, 15, 12. And we'll also then hammer back onto 15 and pull off back to 12. So what is that? That's 5 notes, and then we're going to play the 15th on the B string. And then we'll add 3 more notes in there. We'll play the 12th on the E, and the 15th, and the 12th on the, what is that, on the B. And that'll be our little generator. We will take that through the scale. So we'll play a very similar sequence on the B and the G string, although on the G we're going to play 14-12 rather than 15-12. those two together, and then run it through the scale. On the G, it'd be 16, 14, 12, landing on 14 on the D, and then 17, 14, 12. And to finish up, we'll land on the 14th fret of the D, which is the root note E. With some delay and all the good stuff, all the cheat codes on there. That kind of thing with it as well. So that's just one way to involve the pinky. Otherwise, I would suggest doing a lot of the basically just 3-note per string major scale shapes and playing them using your middle finger and your pinky for the big stretches. Say if you're doing C major, 8, 10, 12 on the low strings. That kind of thing happening. But yeah, otherwise, that pentatonic thing, that's the lick of the week. Jerry, I hope that helps you out. Feel free to hit me up with any other questions about getting the pinky involved, because I think it's kind of the secret weapon on the guitar. Once you get your pinky going, you know, it's the difference between being able to reach this far and being able to reach this far on the guitar. It's pretty rad. As always, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I will see you all next week. Get your questions in the comments below, and if you're feeling generous and you haven't yet, hit subscribe. I would love to stay in touch with you guys. See you around.